there so it doesn't get lost.
Probably better. You'll see that.
It doesn't get lost. It goes in the order.
She's helping him.
Let's call to order the Municipal Housing Agency Governing Board meeting, first meeting of 2013. I will ask the clerk to take roll, please.
County.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
Mahaffey.
Here.
Hensley.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, item 2 is approving the Des Moines Municipal Housing Agency's DMMHA request to the Department of Housing and Urban Development HUD to rescind 3 single-family homes from the approved 5H homeownership plan and to put the rescinded units into a new disposition application for 2234 East 34th Street and 5316 South Union Street and 3208 East 9th Street, Board Communication number 13-001. Is there anybody here to speak on this item? Seeing none, does the board have any questions or want to make a motion?
I'll move approval.
All right, item's been moved. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Item passes. It's the only item on this first agenda, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
Move.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We sit adjourned. Prior to starting the Des Moines City Council meeting this evening, we're going to have a short invocation by our own City Council member, Bob Mahaffey, and for those who would want to participate with us at this time, I would ask that you stand.
For invocation tonight, I've chosen a prayer, a short prayer from Meditations for Meetings. If you'll join with me. Thank you, God, that you are here for us. Thank you that it is not what we see, but who we do not see that makes us all different. We turn to you. In faith, we turn our eyes away from human resources and fix them on you. We remember your faithfulness to us in the past. We trust you for the future. Amen.
I want to again welcome everybody to our first Des Moines City Council meeting for 2013. I will at this time again ask the clerk to take roll of the City Council.
County.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
Mahaffey.
Here.
Hensley.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, item I under this is the appointment of a mayor pro tem for the 2013 calendar year effective January 14th, today 2013, and I put in before you as my appointment Chris Coleman. So
Thank you, Mayor.
you bet.
I'll move.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you.
You've just given us
Just
a
stay
year,
here
your
all
life.
year long.
All right, item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. Should we have a motion to that effect?
Move.
It's been moved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. The agenda is approved. Item 3 is approving the consent agenda. Tonight, those are items 3 through 39. And this evening, those items, by the way, are items that are on a consent that will be enacted as one vote unless somebody from the audience chooses to pull one for further clarification or discussion, or one of our city council members. Again, 3 through 39. Item 4X, council members Hensley, Grease, and Moore have asked to speak. Item 16, Councilmember Moore wishes to speak. And item 25IB, Councilmember Moore wishes to speak, but I think it's connected to 4X. Are there any other items? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Bill here with MediaCom Communications. I wish to speak on
All right, item 38.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I didn't turn in 31.
All right, item 31. Any other items? Seeing none, could we have a motion for the balance, please?
Move.
It's been moved. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Item passes. First item pulled is item 4X. That's 4 is approving alcoholic beverage license applications for the following, and this particular one is for Nat Food Mart, 1443 Second Avenue for an e-liquor license. And I'll ask Councilmember Grease or Hensley. Kelly?
Yeah, I guess my motion, unless you guys have anything to add, on 25IB, they've got a $1,500 penalty and a 30-day suspension. So I'd like to continue that item, their renewal, until after that 30-day suspension has been handled.
Okay. Ms. Hensley, do you have anything to add? Right?
I totally agree.
All right. Anybody in the audience will speak on this item? All right. The motion, I believe, is to withhold passing and continue item 4X for Nat Food Mart at 1443 Second Avenue, pending their 30-day suspension of their liquor license for violation of the Iowa alcoholic beverage laws, which is, in this case, sale to minors. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes. Item 16 is a communication from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Item 16 is regarding a request from Eagle Iron Works for 129 East Holcomb to vacate the requested portions of the east-west segment of the alley between Brigart Street and East Holcomb Avenue running west of Oxford Street, subject to the provision of easements. Mr. Moore.
After reading through this in here, you see that John Morrissey spoke to this item and at the P&Z, and I totally agree with what he said. I don't see why we're moving ahead with this time until they have a land acquisition, somebody buying their property ready to go. They didn't really know if the neighborhood support or not, but when you read back here, there is a letter of support from Union Park, and they do support this. The one thing I wanted to point out, Mr. Manager, on this is when you look at the map on this, we own all the property east of there, and we ought to take advantage of this time and eliminate the alley in there and create our property as one large parcel also in the future when we can do it. Other than that, I'll move 16.
Is there anybody in the audience to speak on this motion? Seeing none?
7 yes.
All right, Mr. Moore, have we covered 25I?
Yeah, I want to speak left for the same reasons for it.
Okay, so that will be included in the consent. He's withdrawn 25IB. Takes us to item 31. Item 31 is approving the 2012 U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development HUD Continuum of Care Program application, Council Communication number 13-003. Mr. Coleman.
Thank you. Quick little history. A couple of years ago, the City Council and the Polk County Board of Supervisors jointly set up the Homeless Coordinating Council. And one of our goals was to kind of bring more planning and thoughtfulness to some of the funding sources that serve the homeless and vulnerable, near homeless individuals in our community. And one of the strategies was to try and improve the continuum of care. That's a funding source from the federal government. It's also an allocation of dollars based on a planning process locally. Well, the city council nor elected officials can control that. But the Homeless Coordinating Council worked to recruit a new cross-section of community people, including service providers, law enforcement, mental health professionals, the business community, other community agencies, and they've gone through a really important process. One of the reasons why this was important right now is we fund a tremendous amount of what is called transitional housing. It's a category of assistance that HUD has had for some time, and the new goals of the federal government are to phase out of transitional housing in hopes of more rapidly putting people back into supportive permanent housing. And there's a lot of changes that are going on. This has resulted in a recommendation from the continuum of care to create a permanent fund, or at least for a year, is all they're recommending right now, but a position and planning dollars so that this work can happen very effectively. It means that we begin phasing out of some transitional programs this year, and we'll begin phasing out more of them in the future. The Homeless Coordinating Council has set a goal of a more coordinated intake so that service providers are working together and we're tracking dollars better, and getting to that planning effort is critical. There is a downside, and that is that one of the programs that serves people is a program of the City of West Des Moines Community Services. They received funding for one program, but it's recommended that the second program not be funded. Currently, that provides 3 units for housing in the community. There is an alternative to the recommendation that the continuum of care made, and I'd like to share it with you, and I recommend it today. What it basically would do is it would swap in the order of priority the program in West Des Moines for funding. I can talk more about this in a minute, but there are a couple of housing units, transitional units, that do provide service. The longest this funding would last is for a year because it's everyone's intention that we phase out of it. If you did that first, it still leaves $9,000 that could be allocated to the planning effort, and so you could really have a bunch of both. I know that the city is committed to the planning, I know that the continuum of care is committed to the planning, and I know that Polk County is committed to the planning, and I think that we could accomplish all 3 without reducing the amount of money that goes into homeless services and the number of units in the metro area. I said I'd go back to the West Des Moines thing. Quite frankly, one of the reasons why I've been inclined to support this as an alternative recommendation is I applaud West Des Moines. They're the one metropolitan government besides the city of Des Moines that has sponsored a program like this, and they're in that community. And I think the cooperation that we have to address the issues of homelessness as a region, which is important. Our service providers primarily are in our city, and so all those homeless and transient folks get dropped off in Des Moines when they come to town. And so I think we need a regional solution to this. And because I applaud West Des Moines for always having that as a priority, I'd like to see them funded. I need to allow the manager to make a comment because this planning is important. And if we are going to accomplish this, I think the only way that I can recommend that alternative is if there was money available from the continuum of care and the city and the county to make sure that planning happened so we could kind of continue forward on our major goals. And you and I have talked about it, but I think I ought to let you speak for yourself and not me.
Mr. Coleman, council members, at issue here are 2 things. I think one is the desire of the Homeless Coordinating Council to move forward on issues related to planning and providing for services for homeless people in a more efficient way than we're doing today. And in order to do that, there is the desire, if I understand it, to provide services of a homeless coordinator that would be staffed. We're not exactly sure which agency would be staffed in order to help the committee through that process. In order to do that, funding is required. It's my thought that funding for such a thing ought to be shared between the city, Polk County, perhaps United Way, perhaps others, but that in any event, we would be in a position, if there were that kind of joint sharing of funding, to allocate some of our CDBG dollars for that purpose. We have, I'm assured by Chris Johansson, up to around $10,000 or so that could be used for that purpose. And if it's the council's will, we would be able to pursue that with our partners to see if they would be willing to fund it in a like amount.
Thank you. So let me try and conclude this, because I know I've lived, this is one of those issues that you all find yourself in the middle of. You work on it day and night, and you think you know everything about it, but nobody else even knows it's on my radar screen. This is an important allocation because it sets the kind of framework for how homeless dollars are spent in our community. And it's been the goal of the people that have kind of adopted this as a personal mission, that we do better with these dollars, that we get better outcomes, that we have to invest in new strategies. That will help happen this year and next year. But we can do it in a slightly different way because the county and the city have found some money. We can expand services rather than contract them. And really, quite frankly, services means how many units are available for homeless. When we have such a significant problem in our community and so many people are struggling, I don't think now is the time to take even 3 more units out of the system. So we'd be swapping $25,000 from planning to West Des Moines. We'd retain $9,000 for the planning, matched by the county and city. And the county, city, United Way, that already has been spending money on a coordinator, a small contract, would be a participant as well, I'm certain. And that would allow us in quick speed to begin that planning process and start to move forward on our goals as a community. So that's my recommendation, and I've exchanged a number of emails with Chris Johansson and Rick Clark on this, and I think I've laid it out in a way that's consistent with regulations and with the budget. And I think, Rick, if you're comfortable in being, I think what we're doing is authorizing you to sign the form of the application, so you need to clearly understand what my recommendation is.
Well, I think so, Mr. Coleman. I think there are very stringent rules, federal rules, in terms of how the funding that is approved by the continuum of care is handled. It's my understanding that with proper kind of context, the council can make some adjustment in it. And so long as we follow those procedures, I would be comfortable making those changes if that's your recommendation and the council approves it. Okay. And I guess I'm looking back here to Chris Johansson or Phil Delafield if you either of you have additional comments you want to provide on this thing. Chris, I guess we're okay. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, and I concur with your recommendation, Chris. I believe it's important, though, just to also have part of the motion that we appreciate all of the work and the effort that was put forward by the Continuum of Care, because they've done, this is a transition period for us, and I know that we're all kind of feeling our way and trying to make sure that we abide by all the rules and regulations. But I also want the message to be that we are appreciative of all of those new individuals that have come forward to spend time and effort on that, so that they understand that we support their recommendations, but we're just tweaking it in a, I would say, in a minor way.
Mr. Mayor, it's my understanding that with the recommendation that Mr. Coleman has put forth, the vast majority of the continuum's recommendation would be intact. This is a relatively minor change in terms of what they've recommended, so the major funding categories would be exactly as they have put forth.
Okay.
And I think it's in the spirit of what they want to accomplish with planning. It's through a different process and one that expands the number of units, doesn't contract them. So with that, Mayor, if you're comfortable with how I'm laying this out, I'd make that in a motion, if that's what you want at this time. And
I think it's appropriate.
Or do you want more discussion first? I don't.
Well, let's open it and see what council, any further discussion, questions, clarifications? Any from the audience? Anybody has any comments regarding Mr. Coleman's recommendation? Please.
Mayor and City Council, I'm Sue Patterson Nielsen, Director at West Des Moines Human Services, and just would like to thank you for recognizing the fact that we are in this work together, and we are a part of the continuum, and we believe in everything the continuum is doing, but we do not want to lose units for the homeless folks that we are serving. So we appreciate the acknowledgement of the fact that we all want to solve problems together. So thank you for the recommendation.
Thank you.
Well, and let's continue to thank, I don't think she'll mind me saying this, Angela Conley, who now represents much of West Des Moines, who shares, I think, our sentiment that those units stay active for a year. It's important, as Christine noted, to thank the committee. It's also important to note that this is the first year, and each year the change that's going to occur in these funding allocations is going to be more dramatic. The federal government and our local priorities are changing, and it's not going to be status quo for these funding arrangements and for these providers.
Seven yes.
All right, that takes us to item 38, which is ordinances, second consideration. Item 38 is amending Chapter 78 of the Municipal Code regarding licensing and regulation of peddlers as amended. There is a request A under that. Final consideration of the ordinance above the waiver is requested by Councilmember Hensley. It requires 6 votes. We have a speaker that wishes to absolutely, and give us your name and address, sir.
Do you want my home address or my business address?
We'll take anything and everything you want to
All
give.
right. My name is Bill Peard. I'm the Senior Manager of Government Relations with Mediacom Communication. My home address is 785 Southeast Bob White Lane in Waukee. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I'm here on behalf of Mediacom tonight. For those of you that are not familiar with Mediacom, we provide over 800 jobs in the metro area. We air public interest programming in Des Moines and help with many charitable and civic events. We have used door-to-door sales reps, which allow us to be successful enough to reinvest in the Des Moines community. We are here to respectfully request a third reading of the proposed changes to the peddlers permit ordinances. We have already received, you should have already received a letter in your packet regarding that. Residential door-to-door sales is an important part of Mediacom's business. We have some concerns about the ordinance and would like to work with the city to strike a balance between citizens' privacy and the ability to communicate directly with citizens. When the first and second reading happened, our key staff was out of town over the holidays. We would like to have the opportunity to work cooperatively with city staff on what we think are legitimate concerns. Therefore, we respectfully would like to request a third reading of tonight's proposed peddler's license. Our desired outcome would be detailed in the letter that's in your packet. The change to the display of license to read that it would be offered to each prospective customers with whom the peddler speaks. Additional issues would be Mediacom would like the opportunity to work with the city staff to execute mutually acceptable changes. Multiple permits and bonds, Mediacom would like to seek an umbrella regarding this process. Possible shortening of waiting period for company with good records or prior applicants. So with that, I would answer any questions, but again, it was kind of a situation that kind of happened over the holidays. We got a little bit behind. We would have been here sooner. We had key staff on vacation. So we just want to have a chance to have a discussion with your city staff and your city attorney on some of these proposed changes.
And your base request is to waive the third reading?
Waive the second, yeah.
All right, any questions?
Go ahead with the second reading, but
Right.
wait on the third.
That's right.
Could I look to legal to just have some general input as to what are some of the recommendations? I mean, not going into great detail, but I mean, are these reasonable? Are these unrealistic?
differs depending upon the particular recommendation they have and exactly what they're trying to accomplish. Some of the items that that they're talking about, we've already talked about as staff. We're happy to meet with them and review it, what's already been prepared and any proposed changes that they have. But some of the items we've already talked about, and we have concerns about that, or we've addressed in terms of how far it's appropriate to go. For example, a blanket exemption for these kinds of, for this particular kind of company, I think that would have trouble with surviving a rational basis to differentiate between a company that happens to have a franchise agreement with the state that has absolutely no bearing on the types of and kinds of information that the city's looking at. I think we would have serious problems granting a blanket exemption. With respect to the language change, I don't know that I have a great deal of problem with what they've proposed. I do know that staff has concerns about offering as opposed to requiring it be the document, the license copy be left, simply because then we get into a proof problem of trying to prove whether or not it was really offered. And I'm sure MediaCom wouldn't do this, but other vendors would say, oh yeah, we offered it, even when they didn't. And so that gets to be a bit of a problem. But we're certainly open to discussion. And we'll be happy to review it, but by no means can I assure council that your legal staff is going to recommend the same changes that they've suggested.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and just move the second reading then and not ask to waive the third reading. But I guess because MediaCom is standing here, Bill, I'd also like to have a discussion on customer service, because as a result of the storm,
Right.
I think we all had a number of calls on customer service and issues, and just like to have.
I think Councilwoman, that my door is always open. We've had discussion, the mayor, Chris, Rick, we've all had discussions over issues that we have, and we'll be glad to discuss any and all of those tonight.
Not tonight.
Yeah, no, I mean, but tonight I'm here.
Okay.
Just to make sure we get a third reading, so we have a chance to communicate with the members of the staff, and they can communicate with the council.
Well, my motion is to move the second reading
Yep.
and not go forward with the third.
All right, I appreciate that. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
All right, the item's been moved. I'll ask if anybody else has any comments from the audience. Seeing none, any other comment by council? Okay, item's been moved.
7 yes.
All right. I believe that completes the consent agenda through item 39. It takes us to ordinances. First consideration amending Chapter 18 of the Municipal Code regarding definition of dangerous animal. Council Communication number 13-016. Anybody here to speak to this? You want to say that? No? Ms. Hensley?
I do have a question on that. It raises a question, I guess, in my mind, because I've had a couple of calls from citizens, and I support the ordinance change here, but once an animal has been declared dangerous and/or vicious, and they're required to go through and do the additional, meet the additional requirements as the ordinance spells out, have we given thought to looking at a time period so that, maybe 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, they've not had any additional problems? The issue being insurance premiums are pretty prohibitive for some individuals. I don't know, but I guess just looking at it on the reverse side, and what do other communities do? And you have somebody.
The dangerous and vicious, remember, those are two different things. when the dog is declared as dangerous, then the dog will be euthanized.
Yep.
The dog will be destroyed. I believe your question really pertains to the vicious dog.
Correct.
And there has been some initial staff discussions about that, about coming up with some type of language that would allow for a certain period of time upon additional education and additional training. Some of the literature that I've seen suggests that it's really the animal owners that need to be trained and reconditioned more so than the animal. And as council will acknowledge from all of the hearings that you've had in the past on these items, a lot of times it's the repetition of the dog continually being exposed to whatever external stimuli that provoke it or cause a reaction, and the owner's inability to respond and remove the dog from that. I don't think that there's anything necessarily ready to go, but I know that that has been looked at. And
So that potentially may come back with a recommendation or some options?
sure, I don't know where Rick is with that in the process. But.
Mr. Mayor,
Manager?
Mr. Mayor, council members, we'd be happy to look at that if that's what the council desires. These are very difficult issues. No matter what you do, it seems like we're back tinkering with these things over time, but we'd be happy to look at it and come back to you with some recommendations.
It's not at the top of the list. I realize there are a lot of other things that are out there, but it has been raised by citizens. As they go out to renew insurance, their insurance rates go up significantly when they have an animal in the home that's been declared vicious.
We can sure look at it if you like.
I'll move item 38. Or 39, excuse
40.
me. 40, sorry. I'll get there right. Sorry.
7 yes.
It is 5:02. We are going to move now to the hearing items. Quickly, we'll come back to the others. First item on the hearings, let's note that we open the hearing at 5:03. Item 48 is on the appeal of Kenneth Downing on the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission regarding property at 1308 9th Street, River Bend Historic District. Council Communication number 13-007. A is affirming the decision, or an alternative resolution reversing the decision. Is Mr. Downing here?
Yes, sir.
All right, hang on one second.
Just, Mayor, if I could, I'd do a brief overview of the appeal and then
Yep.
turn that over. Mayor and council members, Michael Ludwig, Planning Administrator for the City of Des Moines. Mr. Downing is appealing the October 17th decision of the Historic Commission to deny his request for a certificate of appropriateness. Basically, Mr. Downing had asked for retention of a metal trim covering and some plexiglass window covers on the house. The work was completed without a certificate of appropriateness, and he has contended that the work was done as ordinary maintenance on the house, and the commission's and staff's opinion was that it was an alteration to the structure. He was issued a stop work order on the project, and just to give you a brief overview of what the alterations were. This is a photo from 2006, which actually showed some of the original molding on the building and the windows up in this gable. You can briefly see right here, there was a metal trim at some point that had been applied to the property. 2006, as you'll recall, this was River Bend Historic District, which just was established within the last year. So these alterations would have been done prior to this being in a historic district. However, at the hearing, they cited that for at least the last 5 years, much of the trim that had been added on the building had fallen off due to wind, and so it was only repaired after 5 years of basically allowing it to deteriorate. These are just some current photos showing the metal cladding that was put on over the trim, plexiglass placed over the windows up in the gable. The majority of the discussion at the commission meeting was regarding the manner of the craftsman or workmanship that was done on the cladding that was placed on the building. These photos, I think, show fairly clearly some of the appearance of work that was done. Be going around on other sides also. As I stated, the commission did deem that because of the time that elapsed between whatever original work had been done, that this did constitute an alteration. They did vote 9-0 to recommend denial of the request, and is a staff's opinion that they at least used some reasonable judgment in their decision-making on that request. I'm available if you have any questions.
Mike, how has the commission or staff generally in the past viewed general maintenance and upkeep? In just reading through the notes, there was some questioning as to, well, 5 years had passed, but it's still maintaining my property. How have we handled that in the past?
Well, it clearly centers on the definition of the alteration versus repair or maintenance. I don't know that there's been specifically, anytime there's been siding removed on a property or windows changed out on a property, those have constituted an alteration. Repair, generally painting a property has been repair, replacing like materials on the building. But due to the time lapse that occurred on this, it was deemed to be an alteration. And had that been reviewed or been in a historic district, 13 years ago when they originally put that cladding on there, it's my opinion they would have argued that that was an alteration. It wasn't a like material that was being applied to the building.
So had it been in a historic district 5 years ago when the wind blew it off, would we have considered it to be an alteration or general upkeep? Is it just the time delay that's the issue?
Well, I think that's part of it. I think originally, had this been in a historic district, when they went to place the cladding on the building, that probably would have required some sort of review by our commission. They wouldn't have been allowed to just do that as a repair item. That would have been an alteration to the structure.
Any other questions?
Mike, in this picture you're showing, is this corner, is that metal?
This would be some of the cladding
Yeah.
placed over the wood.
Normally the wood would come across at the corner there.
Those, again, would be the plexiglass items that were placed over the windows.
Is it the plan to leave the plexiglass there?
The commission requested that the plexiglass and the cladding be removed, and that they get a certificate of appropriateness and correct or abate the problems per the guidelines.
All right. Any other questions? Council? All right, Mike, stay available in case we have some other questions. Mr. Downing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Michael Jones of the Patterson Law Firm on behalf of Kenneth Downing. My business address is 505 Fifth Avenue, Suite 729 in Des Moines. Mr. Downing, when he submitted his application, stated 13 years ago we covered the trim with tin to abate lead-based paint. Over the years, some has blown off. On April 24, 2012, we were reattaching what had blown off. And I think that's a simple statement of the facts here, which have not been disputed by the city, and that is the sequence is that this trim, this metal trim, was originally attached 13 years ago, that some of it blew off, and that Mr. Downing in 2012 was simply reattaching what had blown off. Now, I think the significance of that becomes apparent when we look at the code section that applies here. And the municipal code, section 68-27, contains the definition of what is an alteration. And the city's position is that Mr. Downing has made an alteration by reattaching the trim. But the definition of alteration starts with, means any action to change, modify, reconstruct, remove, or demolish any exterior features on an existing structure. And Mr. Downing has not done any of those things. He has not changed, modified, reconstructed, removed, or demolished any exterior features from the way it was 13 years ago. Now, this definition of alteration goes on to state, for purposes of this article, ordinary maintenance and repair, not just maintenance, but repair, to correct any deterioration, decay, or damage to a structure are excluded from the definition of the term alteration, provided that such work does not involve a change in the type of building materials. So for Mr. Downing's simple statement of the facts, which are not disputed by the city, he used the very same building materials to make the repairs in 2012 from the building materials, use the same building materials that had been on there before the storm damage. So we have metal trim before, some of it blows down, he puts the metal trim back up. There's nothing in this code section that tells a homeowner that they have to do it within 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, or they don't get the advantage of this code section. And so to the extent that the city has, I think, hung their hat on the fact that some time expired from some of the metal trim blowing down to the time that it was repaired, there's really no basis in the ordinance itself for that being the determinative factor in Mr. Downing's request for to be allowed to use that trim. I think it's also important that in another code section, 58.68-31, subpart C, and this is the part of the code that addresses certificates of appropriateness. And there's a paragraph that states, "It is the intent of this article that the commission shall be reasonable in the judgments and shall endeavor to approve proposals for the alteration of structures of little historical, architectural, or cultural value, except when such a proposal would seriously impair the historical values and character of the surrounding area." And there's been no showing by the city of Des Moines that these repairs that Mr. Downing made in April of 2012 would seriously impair the historical values and character of the surrounding neighborhoods. This statement of the code that the commission should endeavor to approve proposals for alteration of structures of little historical, architectural, and cultural value, they didn't take any of that into consideration. I think simply what the Historical Preservation Commission did here is they preferred the look of the property the way it was before the metal was installed 13 years ago. But that's not what the Municipal Code Section 58-27 tells them to do. That's not what the Municipal Code Section 58-31 subpart C tells them to do. So we would ask you to reverse the decision.
Thank you.
Sir, are you contesting the plexiglass issue separately, or what?
Yes, we are. We go back to 58-27, the last sentence of that definition of alteration says, "For purposes of this article, changes made in the type and design of storm windows and in the color of the outer surfaces of a structure are considered to be ordinary maintenance and repair." What they did here was they put plexiglass on the inside of these windows, red, white, and blue in color, and I would submit that it's a de minimis matter, and that it's certainly within what's considered to be ordinary repair and maintenance.
Thank you.
Question, is Mr. Downing, is this his residence or is this an investment?
This is, he lives in the neighborhood. He lives 2 houses down from this particular property. This is a rental property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wanted to come forward to speak to the council? Anybody? Thank you. If there's anybody else, would you please line up behind the microphone just so we know how many people will be here?
City Council, Mike Hildebrand, 410 Franklin Avenue. I'm also the president of the Riverbend Neighborhood Association, and I was a core member with the housing committee that worked on this process to get the local historic district established. I'm here in regards to Mr. Downing in general, but I also want to arm you with additional information that can apply to this, as well as, I would assume, future engagements with residents that choose to ignore the local district guidelines. I believe, as you've seen from the photos, that the quality of work as well as the Historic Preservation Commission ruling sort of stand on their own, and I don't know if I really need to take up much time on that, but I did include in your packet, the first page, a letter of support for the Historic Preservation Commission's ruling. Each one of you got that. But what I'd really like to address is more of a lack of information that we've heard in here in the Historic Preservation Commission when people come up, as well as to the council for other items. And I want to arm you with this information for future reference in this item, as well as others that come in front of you. In February, we sent out a postcard once the district was established. That's the second item in your packet. It's a postcard that informed the property owners they were in a district and asked them to go to a website or send a request for the information to a post office box for those that don't use the internet. And it mentions in here that we want to assist when planning exterior improvements on the property. I didn't print out my mail list for all of you, but I do have it available, and I have highlighted Mr. Downing's name and address. It was not sent registered mail, but I have to assume that Mr. Downing received a copy of the postcard. Third item in your packet is a flyer that we delivered door to door in April, talking about a workshop for all those that live in the local district. Those were delivered door to door. Mr. Downing did not attend that meeting. The next item is another postcard that we sent out to the entire neighborhood. While it doesn't deal directly with the local district, it does mention that there is a local district, and we invited people to attend the meeting or go to the website to find out more information. I have the mail list to the entire neighborhood. Fifth page, I think it is, highlights Mr. Downing's name and address. And the final item really doesn't have anything to do with Mr. Downing, but is a letter that we send out to all new residents. We monitor Zillow and other real estate sites, and whenever someone new buys a property in the local district, we send that letter out. So I hope this arms you with information that we've, I believe, gone above and beyond trying to work with our neighbors and inform them and make sure that we're working on the front end of this and working through the situations versus spending our time here and our efforts on the back end trying to correct issues. So I'm going to present this information to the Historic Preservation Commission on Wednesday. I hope that will alleviate some of those issues that come to council and you can get on with running the city. But I think we've gone above and beyond informing the city, or informing the residents of the local district. And I would welcome the mayor, city council, city staff, residents of Des Moines to contact me and tell me if you have any additional ideas that we can work with within reason, financially and time, because a lot of my personal finances went into printing, postmarking, and mailing this. I'll do anything to try and alleviate some of these issues on the front end. This is what we've done so far, so I appreciate the council and the Historic Preservation Commission, and I encourage you to go with item A of affirming the decision.
I'll make a motion to receive and file the information here that was presented. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Hallie?
I guess on this one, I'm having a real tough time. I've been supportive of the historic district in the past. I continue to, obviously, to be supportive of the district. And I see this one as kind of two components. I see the plexiglass issue as a pretty straightforward alteration to the property. The metal or tin sheathing, I consider to be different. The fact that the ordinance allows for repairs to occur, it doesn't really make a condition that it's repaired within a certain amount of time. And quite frankly, as a city, I think we want to encourage people to repair homes and properties that are in disrepair, even if they've not done so for an extended period of time. So, Mike, if you want to come back up or just give me a nod, I'd like to split up the two items and affirm the decision in part and also reverse the decision in part would be my motion. Am I able to do that?
I guess I would defer to the legal department, but you're reviewing the whole decision, so I would assume you could split that.
Okay. Mr. Attorney, am I able to split up the components of this and uphold the decision in part and reverse in part?
Yes.
Okay. That would be my motion, is to uphold the,
Mike, I'm going to have a clarification as
Sure.
he puts this up. So go ahead, put your motion.
my motion would be to reverse the decision on the, and I'm not sure the specific language, but the tin sheathing, and affirm the decision on the plexiglass windows. I consider those to be a material alteration, and I don't consider the putting up what was already on the home to be anything but
Can you
but a
separate
repair.
them?
Can we bifurcate the vote?
Yeah.
Sure, yep. My first motion would be to affirm the decision on the plexiglass, and maybe wait for any other comments before we vote on that.
My comments on the other one, so we can go
Okay.
ahead.
7 yes.
And then my second motion would be to reverse the decision on the 10 portion.
Michael, to clarify, it was stated by Mr. Patterson, attorney for Mr. Downing, that they reattached the metal trim. Based upon what he said, in part, it sounded like they put up the exact same stuff that had blown off. They just reattached it. Is it, it doesn't look like the stuff that was up there. It looks like sort of an attempt to look like the stuff that is up there, although it may be the same material. Is that correct or not?
There was no review in 2006 of the material that was placed on the building, so I'm not certain whether it's exact material as previous. I think, again, in this photo, you can see there at least was some trim placed or covering over the original trim of the building. You can see it's starting to pull away at that location, but everything up in this area is absent. Everything up on this gable's absent. The replacement or repair that was issued a stop work order, you know, I'm assuming they covered the original that was up there and then placed this in that location. Again, the commission's discussion was really centered on the workmanship or the manner in which the materials were placed on the building.
And from my standpoint, I don't disagree with that at all, particularly I think the next photo you showed of the backside of the property shows what I'm no contractor, but shows poor workmanship, at least in the seaming and some of the dents and so forth. So I'm by no means endorsing the work that was done, but I do consider it to be a repair.
Mr. Attorney.
Mike, was the claim by Mr. Downing presented to the commission at the time of the review that it was the same materials that had been placed or that were on the structure initially that were replaced? Or
I
is
was
this
not
new?
present at that meeting, and the actual digital recording did not actually record of the meeting, so I can't speak to the exact, transcript that was of that meeting. He may be able to speak to, there was a complete packet of information presented to the council of what the commission had in front of them, so.
Mr. Patterson,
Jones,
I'm sorry.
it's the attorney for, from the Patterson Law Firm, I believe his name is Mr. Jones.
Okay. So it's not Michael Patterson, Mr. Jones.
I can't remember what his name is.
Could the attorney step up and answer questions quickly? Is your name Michael Patterson?
It's Michael Jones, I'm sorry.
Michael Jones, okay.
With the Patterson Law Firm.
Okay, I'm sorry. Michael, did you understand the question that Mr. Lester asked? Is this information that was specifically presented at that time?
Yes.
Regarding the material?
My recollection is that the evidence that was received by the commission at our hearing back in October made clear that although the exact pieces weren't reattached, that this is exactly the same type of, that this is the metal. In all specifications, it's the same building material that was installed 13 years ago.
Just a point of as we move forward, because I think that these issues come up periodically. In a historic district area, there is some expectation that people, when they are making upgrades to a property, that it be consistent with some of those original materials. And we've had other hearings in front of this council in that regard. It's clear that this material needed to be fixed, repaired, and it sounded like maybe a significant bit of it had come off. And it looks like maybe even some more was added. But it's not consistent with the materials, apparently with a 9-0 vote, that are consistent in a historic district. And you see the dilemma that a whole neighborhood is voted to work on these kinds of standards. What we're presented with, overruling a board that unanimously thought that either the work and the materials and everything were inconsistent with the original piece. Now, we're talking about a repair of a repair, it sounds like. And so as you're looking at this, is legal advice to your client, and obviously trying to speak for him in ways that will represent his situation. I'm pressed hard to think that this is consistent with the intent of an historic district area, and that without any permitting, they just went up and found somebody, put some metal up, and tack it over. Am I wrong? Is that not what happened here?
Well, they certainly didn't think they were in violation. I think they thought, and I think based on the ordinance, rightfully so, that they were simply repairing damage consistent with the way the property had looked before. And I certainly understand, the benefits of the historical district, but, Mr. Downing is a long-time resident of this neighborhood, a property owner. I think that if we had enough time, we could go back and prove that Mr. Downing has been a very positive influence on this neighborhood, because it wasn't a very good neighborhood when he moved in 40 or 50 years ago, and he's bought up properties and repaired them, maybe not in the same way that an architect would do so if they had a big budget and And, you know, why, and if aesthetic was the only consideration, and having attended the meeting back in October, I can say that certainly the emphasis of the Historical Preservation Commission was the aesthetics of the old versus the new, and then they used this, they actually used 1 year. They said, if you don't do something within 1 year, then that's routine maintenance. And I would submit that when you look at the ordinance, it does use the phrase routine maintenance, but it also says repair, and it talks about damage. And so I think if you actually look at the municipal code, which I think is an attempt to balance the considerations of the historic district with also the rights of property owners.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, quick question to you. Did this work require a permit?
No, it did not.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I guess my motion would stand to reverse the decision on the, did you want to speak, Brianne?
I'm a member, Brian By, 523 Franklin. I am a member of the Historic Preservation Commission. I don't know if it's typical or even warranted for me to give any perceptions as a commissioner, so if it's not, I don't want to do so. I don't know what the precedent is.
Let's ask the attorney just to confirm.
It's not permitted by law, I can tell you that.
Not permitted by law.
Not prohibited.
Not prohibited, okay. Just a few comments. We certainly did have a lot of debate about what the time frame is for repairs and whether or not 5 years was really an appropriate time to be able to argue that one could be making routine repairs. I also think that it's important to point out that this is not the original material that's being repaired. That is something that we considered. As a commission, we are asked to balance the maintenance needs, all of the needs of the property owners with the needs of the structure itself, with the materials. And so we had not just a discussion about the aesthetics, but a discussion about protecting the integrity, the historic integrity of this property. And the trim work, the metal trim work that was being covered over by the metal, we had a long discussion about what the effects in terms of water seeping behind, getting onto that historic very detailed scroll work at the top would be when the water seeps in behind the metal and has to stay back there. So we didn't just consider aesthetics, we considered what that balance was. And in our efforts to protect the integrity of the property, we chose to deny their request. And I would be more than happy to answer any questions about, from my recollection, without a digital record, I understand, from my recollection of what transpired at the meeting. Thank you.
Any questions we have of the commissioner?
Say one thing.
Yes.
Just to clarify too for the council, I appreciate her willingness to speak, especially given the factual situation with the DVD apparently not working. But understand for consideration of what's before you, she speaks to you as a member of the historic commission. She is not the commission, and the commission can only act corporately. So I just want to remind you all of that.
Thank you very much. Right, Ellie, back to you.
Brianne, thank you for sharing. Brianne's actually from the neighborhood and serves in that capacity, so she's definitely a stakeholder in what happens. My motion would stand to reverse the decision on the 10 sheathing. In my opinion, there's routine maintenance and there's repairs, and I am apt to break them up. No different than if a shingle falls out. My expectation isn't that you go down the street and find your shingle that blew out of your house. You replace it with a new shingle. So the fact that he didn't replace it with the same tin that blew off his house 5 years ago isn't a problem for me, but I do consider it to be a repair. And I think based on that, in my position as a councilman, it's my duty to uphold the statute, and that's my reading of the statute, is that this is a repair. So that would be my motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion?
This is another case with this ordinance that I think we have a lot of ambiguity to it. And I'll just tell you, my own piece of troubling is, where if a project doesn't normally require a permit, this one didn't, where is it that somebody should know is the definition between an alteration and a repair? It's difficult to know. And I think the last half hour kind of proved that.
Well, I'm not going to support this because I think a 9-0 vote by the Historic Preservation Commission, and we need to rely on them and what their history and what they're there for. And so I think that my reason for not supporting it is that I want to go along with the Historic Preservation Commission.
Three yes, 4 no.
All right, can we, I suppose we need a vote to affirm.
I'll make the motion then to affirm the recommendation by Historic District Commission.
Four yes, 3 no.
All right, item 48 is, the decision is affirmed on a 4-3 vote. Takes us to item 49, and the request from Smith Home Restorations LLC to rezone 2040 East Walnut Street from R160 one-family low-density residential to limited C2 general retail and highway-oriented commercial to allow reuse as building contractor's office, small engine repair shop, carpenter shop, hobby craft shop uses, and this is a first consideration of the ordinance above. Anyone here to speak to this?
Yes, my name is Paul Gingler, owner of S&G Real Estate, 14274 Wildwood Drive, Clive, Iowa. I'm Troy Smith.
My name is Troy Smith. I'm located at 328 Marleau Parkway, Des Moines, Iowa, 50320. I'm the actual owner of the building.
We have worked on a number of projects together. This particular project we've had for a little over a year. And it's kind of interesting in terms of our positioning on the agenda tonight, with being number 49 and following the last group where the issue seemed to be a lot of conflict between the owner and the neighborhood. When we acquired this building, we spent a lot of time in the neighborhood. We spent a lot of time with the neighbors to make sure that they were comfortable with us there. This is a building that has been there for, I don't know. I know that it's been in industrial usage for about 50 years. I talked to the guy that lived next door, and he said this has been used industrial for that entire period of time, and he moved in there in like 1960. We went in, we redid the building, resided the outside, redid the inside, spent over $30,000 on the building, put up security lights, put up new siding, as I mentioned, put a fence in the back, and generally improved the building. The neighbors love it. The neighbors are all in support of this. In fact, I think that's what happened, that's what really helped us when we went before zoning in terms of the, what I believe their recommendation to change this to C2. It was R160, but it's been used for an industrial type building for the last 50 years. The last 20 to 25 years, it's been used as an electrical shop. Electrician stored his boxes in there and his wiring and this and that sort of thing. So I guess we're here to answer any questions regarding that. Troy, and comments that he has.
Well, when we did the building, we went down there and we pulled all the permits that was necessary, the plumbing, the electrical, the building, the fence, everything. We pulled every permit that was owed. And everybody come down and permit, and everything was inspected and passed by the city of Des Moines. We have taken a dilapidated property and just made it very much better. The neighbors have told us, and the neighborhood has had a lot of crime into it, has told me personally that because of my security lights, The houses around it have not been broke into. We've, the next door neighbor didn't have a no back driveway, so we gave her a piece of our property. We put a piece of concrete in for her for parking because she'd park on the street, and every time snorers come in, she'd get towed. So just, because they're nice people and they're older people, we just gave it to them. The only thing we're asking is for this to be zoned what it is intentionally used for. That's what we're asking for. I don't see, we had like 10 or 11 things when we went in front of them, and they said there was 3 against us and the rest of them are for us, if I'm not correct. And then we had to come in front of you all. So that's pretty much what we're here for. We just want to use the C2. I'm a contractor. I do a lot of houses here in Des Moines. We pull all of our own permits. We've done a lot of the nuisance homes, me and S&G. Naturally, we buy and sell houses. Matt and Paul does with S&G, and then I do with Smith's Home Restorations. That's what we do. And you can ask any inspector in town. We pull our permits. We bring these houses up from what they are a nuisance to a very fine, respectable home. That's what we do.
Okay, am I correct? You got a 9-3 vote to support the rezoning?
Yes.
Okay.
And the bigger question here, and if you look at your sheet, and one of the questions that I have is, they have it rezoned C2. Wonderful. It's exactly what we want. That's what we need. We can't get insurance on the building if we don't have that. The building can't be resold if you don't have insurance. A lot of you folks are familiar with that, possibly even from some of the last times when I've been up here. But when they listed the items that it could be used for, and they say building contractor's office, small engine repair shop, carpenter shop, and hobby shop. Wonderful. Wonderful. We appreciate that. We're using it right now for contractor. We've used it for hobby shop. If any of you are familiar with that tuk-tuk race that was downtown here, a lot of those Cushmans were redone in this building. So, good use. But what happens when Troy Smith moves off to Florida and someone else wants to come in and use this building and they want to take it back and use it as an electrical repair shop? So, we appreciate the zoning. We look forward to your approving the C2. But at the same time, we think it might be worth solving the problem now that could come up 3-4 years from now, that being another very basic business, TV repair. Electrical shop like it's been used for 20-some years. I mean, I don't really know how you address that sort of thing. When I saw this, I said, well, that's great. That's great. That's exactly what we want. We want C2. But it doesn't seem to me that that goes quite far enough to prevent you folks from readdressing this, down the road 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Brian?
For the city attorney, it says first consideration of the ordinance. If we pass the first consideration, can we go back and take a look at, I'm not quite sure why we put these restrictions on. So can we go back and take a look at why they put the restrictions on? Can you give me 2 weeks to go back and look at it if I just pass the first ordinance?
There would still be an opportunity to review, sure.
Right. I'll pass the first consideration so we move the ball down the field, and then we'll.
Thanks, Brian.
What I'd like from the city manager, and I'll look it up myself, but to take a look at the reasons they put on affirmative restrictions instead of some, negative restrictions and that sort of thing. So I'll move the 49 and 49A, but this will move the ball down the field, but we'll come back and look at it.
Appreciate it.
And you guys do a great job with your houses.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
I think it's great. I just don't know. We'll have to go back and look at the minutes of the P&Z.
I think one of the concerns that was by the dissenters was around the future use of the building. So you guys are going to do the right thing, but let's say a tire shop goes in there or some kind of a thing that changes the face of this property to the neighbors. And I think protecting the neighbors was the intent here, to restrict it to specific uses that didn't have a negative impact on neighboring properties, I think.
You're absolutely correct, Mr. Mayor. It's not a think, it's an absolute fact. And that was the concern. It was a specific concern of one of the dissenters that I remember. And that was one of the issues. And I agree that that's a reasonable issue. All I'm saying is maybe we want to look at some of these uses, and if they have concerns about a specific use over here, exclude that one. But when you try to limit it to 4, we know there's 30 more that are going to be coming up in front.
I'm trying to figure out why we didn't just
try to make it more inclusive and still restrict, as Mr. Mayor has just mentioned.
We'll move the ball down the field. and we'll
Sounds good.
revisit it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Does that work?
All right.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Ms. Coleman?
Sorry.
7 yes.
Item 50, on the vacation conveyance and lease of a portion of East Gratis Avenue and Southeast 14th Street right-of-way to Kettening LLC, $2,580 fee and $1,245 lease. Council Communication Number 13-011. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above. B is the final consideration that is requested by the applicant and requires 6 votes. Anyone here to speak to this item, 49?
I'll move, I think we're on 50, right? 50.
Yeah, 50, I'm sorry.
50 A and B, I'll move.
7 yes.
Okay, item 51, on a land exchange agreement with Jerry J. Miller Family Trust for comparable parcels in the Central Place Business Park between Ohio Street and the Des Moines River Levee. Council Communication Number 13-008. Anyone here to speak to this item? Item 51. Items moved.
7 yes.
Item 52, on the conveyance of a permanent underground electric easement at 1 Line Drive to Mid-American Energy for $1. Anyone here to speak to that? Item 52.
Move.
Item's been moved.
$1.50, we need to
7 yes.
Item 53, on the application from Executive Express Airport Shuttle to increase the number of limousines operated under their certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate a limousine service from 3 to 5 limousines. The roll call contains an alternative motions. Council Communication Number 13-012. Anyone here to speak to this? Item 53.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Jeff Ratcliffe at 1326 Wilson Avenue in Ames, Iowa, and I represent Executive Express. I was here 2 weeks ago when you passed a similar request for Majestic Limo to go from 12 limousines to 20, and at that time, after you passed that, there was a question as to whether or not how many is too many limousines operating in the city of Des Moines. I just wanted to provide some perspective tonight as to what type of business we actually do operate. We do operate as a limousine licensed here, but we operate as an airport shuttle service. We've been here since 2009. We have a counter that we rent at the airport. We also have a parking space that we rent there. We have, in this last year, our passenger count to and from the Des Moines Airport, as well as the mega bus stop we serve, as well as the Greyhound bus depot, bringing passengers to and from. We've transported 11,272 passengers in and out of the city of Des Moines, and that was an increase for us of 24.9%. Also last year in January of 2009, we went from 9 daily runs to and from the airport to 14 runs. And so we have seen a tremendous increase in our business. We expect with Southwest Airlines, who is going to be operating more flights in and out, that we hope to bring more passengers to the Des Moines Airport from areas other than just Ames that we mainly serve. And due to that, we'd hope that you'd grant our consideration from going from 3 vehicles to 5 vehicles tonight.
Jeff, do you want us to receive and file your letter?
Yes, if you would, please.
Somebody give us a motion. Receive and file. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any questions of Jeff or comments? Mr. Manager, you have a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, council members, when this item was before you a couple weeks ago, as the speaker noted, you asked us to give you information on the number of limousine certificates operating in the city. That information is contained in a separate letter that has been sent to you, and then I've summarized it in the last paragraph of the background section of this blue letter. In brief, there are currently 78 limousine certificates to operate in the city of Des Moines at present. The letter provides additional information on that point. Just wanted to let you know we had done that.
I appreciated that information because it clearly sets out the difference between the limos and the taxis, and I wasn't 100% clear on that, so I will go ahead and move item 53.
I think there's a need for additional limousines with, well, you read in the paper, we're over 2 million at our airport now, and
Right.
There's more demand for that.
Pretty soon, we're going to have more limousines than cabs.
Well, if they're willing to pay for it. It's all about market.
Competition is good for each other.
Yep.
7 yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, takes us to item 54. Mr. Manager?
I learned just before the meeting tonight that the owner of Helena Chemical has not had a chance to convene their board and take action. They've asked for this item to be continued to your next council meeting.
I'll move to continue.
Is there anybody here to speak on this item? The motion is to continue to our next meeting. Seeing none. Mrs. Hensley, Mr. Moore.
Correct.
Seven yes. That completes our hearing at 5:52. And takes us back now
41, I think.
to 41, which is amending Chapter 74 of the Municipal Code regarding consumption of alcohol, park facility hours, and fees in the park and recreation facilities. Council Communication Number 13-006. Is there anybody here to speak to this item? Seeing none, could we have a motion?
Move.
Item's been moved. Any discussion? Mr. Grease is not there.
6 yes.
Item 42, Chapter 114 of the Municipal Code, submitting traffic regulation changes as follows. Council Communication Number 13-13. A, removal of parking the east side of East 7th Street between East Locust and East Walnut. And B, school-related one-way street operation Oxford Street between Hull Avenue and Tiffin Avenue on school days. Is there anybody here to speak on this item? Seeing none, could we have a motion?
Move.
It's been moved by Brian. Any discussion? All in favor?
No, wait.
Vote.
Seven yes.
All right. That takes us to communications and reports. Item 43 is a petition in favor of the proposed sanitary sewer on East 37th Street between East Euclid Avenue and Hubble Avenue. Is there anybody here comment on it? Council members?
If there's no one to speak on this, I'd move item 43.
Seven yes.
Item 44 is a request from Gabriel Mark Lands of 4028 15th Street to speak regarding gun control. And I want to thank Mr. Lands for coming. I think it's important that we continue to have an open discussion about gun control and at least public safety, which to me is the most important responsibility we have as a city council. And I know our public safety people come to work every single day. I will also say that as a member of the City Council and Mayor of the City of Des Moines, I attended a meeting of mayors and public safety officials and law enforcement people and attorneys in Minneapolis last week, and we talked about a number of things public safety related. And certainly I think that It's this Midwestern voice. They think that we have a position out here and that they listen to us when it comes time for elections now and then. And they also listen to us because we're fairly well grounded and need to think and consider public safety and put it forefront in our mind. So I appreciate the open civil discussion around the issue. And Mr. Lands, it's over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like I said, I'm Gabe Lands. I live at 4028 15th Street here in Des Moines. I'm here representing Oath Keepers of Iowa. I'm the director for the state chapter of Oath Keepers. And I'm also an Iowan. I've lived in Iowa 16 years, and I've served 2 tours, one in Iraq doing detainee operations, and one in Afghanistan doing a mortarman, 120 millimeter gunner. I appreciate your time, giving me the time to speak here. I want to start my time speaking tonight by mentioning some events that have disturbed me. Sandy Hook, God rest his soul, is lost there. That name will never be forgot by anybody in this room. And what happened in Connecticut at that school is an absolute tragedy that mere words don't do justice in describing the depravity of the acts committed there. And nothing that I'm saying tonight is meant to draw or make light of that situation. After the tragedy there, December 18th, KCCI Channel 8 put out a news broadcast that in light of the attack in Connecticut, Mr. County wanted to start a local discussion about gun control. It said in that broadcast as well that the mayor thinks after these events the Second Amendment didn't apply. Well, we're here to at least try and start that discussion. Shortly after, the Des Moines Register had an op-ed written by a retired colonist, Donald Call. In this article, he advocated for declaring the NRA a terrorist organization, making membership illegal, making ownership of unlicensed assault rifles a felony, and continued that if people refused to give up their guns, that prying the guns from their cold, dead hands worked for him. He then continued that he would like to tie Mitch McConnell and John Boehner, our esteemed Republican leaders, to the back of a Chevy pickup truck and drag them around a parking lot until they saw the light on gun control. In addition to these statements, Iowa State Representative Dan Mulbauer publicly has been calling for confiscation of legally obtained guns. I next would like to ask a few questions. My first question, if the members are comfortable answering, is do any of you own a firearm, or do you consistently participate in any firearm-related activities?
I don't think that a debate on that particular issue, you can poll everybody afterwards, but we want to hear what you have to say about it and what you think about it.
Okay. Well, I have the next few other questions, but feel free to keep from answering. My first question is, does the United States have a constitution? Second question, did you take an oath to support both the United States and Iowa Constitution and all that is included in them? Does anything in that oath have a particular exception or conditions allowing for non-support for any particular part of the Constitution? And finally, what do the words from the Second Amendment, militia, arms, people, shall, and infringe mean? Please just bear with me here. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the words. It defines arms as weapons and ammunition, armaments. People as the citizens of a country, especially when considered in relation to those who govern them. The phrase shall not means that the definition is an absolute prohibition of the specification. The specification, which would be the word infringed. The word infringed is also defined as to act so as to limit, undermine, or encroach upon. Now, according to Title 10, United States Code, Subtitle A, Part 1, Chapter 13, Subsection 311, it defines the militia, which is mentioned in the Second Amendment. It defines it as all able-bodied males aged 17 to 45 who have or have shown intent to become U.S. citizens and females who are in the National Guard. It defines the classes of militia. One, as the organized militia, which consists of the National Guard and Naval Militia, and two, the unorganized militia, which consists of the members of the militia who are not members of the Guard or the Naval Militia. You don't have to be a state senator, representative, congressman, or woman, have a political science degree to understand exactly how clear-cut the Second Amendment is. It does not include, but as I clearly pointed out, does not limit us to weapons, ammunition, or armaments just used for hunting. It says nothing about the right being limited to bolt-action rifles, pistols, certain calibers, accessories, or ammunition capacity limits. And you know, I know, we all know it specifically states the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, limited, undermined, or encroached upon. That's not my opinion. It's not rhetoric. It's not a talking point. It's the law. And I'm almost finished here.
Okay.
We came here as Oath Keepers as promptly as we could to address the issue. We came to toe the line and make it clear that we cannot and will not comply with any successful form of any further sort of gun control legislation, ordinance, or code. To do so would be a direct violation of the oath I and millions others have took when we swore an oath as members of the United States Armed Forces to protect and defend the entire United States Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Support and defense for the Constitution can be compared to traditional wedding vows. You stand by it, unwavering, in good times and the bad, tragedy or triumph, until death do you part. Support and defense of the Constitution is our duty, even when it's not politically beneficial or convenient. Iowa's motto is, our liberties we prize and our rights we will maintain, is it not? It's time for us all to put our money where our mouth is and prove that it's not just a phrase of the Sunshine Patriots that sounds nice for a soundbite. In conclusion, let me reiterate, Oath Keepers under any circumstances cannot and will not comply with any gun control measures put into effect here in the state or nation. It is a clear-cut, indisputable, direct violation of the Constitution and our oath, plain and simple. I encourage all of you here tonight to join us in support for the Constitution and in opposition to any further gun control. In other words, in the words of King Leonidas, Molin Lave. That's my speech.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments for this gentleman?
I'll move to receive and file the information.
Yeah, right. It's been moved, receive and file.
While I don't agree with everything that you said, I do want to thank you for your service overseas and doing the things that none of us ever had to do, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Hopefully that sheds some perspective coming from a combat veteran such as myself. And I know that the sentiment is not lost upon my fellow soldiers as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we thank you for coming down and anybody else that comes down. This is a civil, open debate on the issue. We that defend the rights of citizens around this city also think it's important that a person that walks out of their house, that's going to church, that's going to school, it's going to the mall, it's going to just walk down the street deserves to be every bit as safe as anybody else, and that safety on the street is as important as defending certainly our country and our colors against invaders and people that would overthrow our government. And so I think we're all looking to try to find a way to protect our people from tragedies that occur, whether they're multiple deaths or they're sort of slow motion deaths. It's law enforcement, as I would say, in our discussions in Minneapolis last week, there is a concern about how do we prevent that, and it's the open discussion that we all have that tries to yield an outcome that's acceptable to all of us, for our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids and ourselves for that matter. So thanks for coming down with your words, and we've received and filed. Item 45 is to receive and file the comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR, for the city of Des Moines for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2012. Anybody here to speak on that? Seeing none, can we have a motion?
Move to receive and file.
7 yes.
Item 46 is a council request. This is from Councilmember Chris Coleman to speak regarding community policing A request from Councilmember Coleman to allow Beaverdale residents to address the council, including Laura Haynes and Ronnie Hawkins. Mr. Coleman.
Thank you, and thanks for granting a little bit of time. Quick preface to a report that I've asked to have come before us and before some of my neighbors speak to the council. Over the last 15 or 20 years, I've watched this community policing work unfold pretty successfully in our community, and I'm very proud of it. But there are also days and situations where, as an elected official, as much as I'd like to trumpet the good news in the city every day, it sounds a little bit like we're drinking the Kool-Aid if we're not finding ways to improve. In the last couple of weeks, 2 of my neighbors have been burglarized in the community, and one of the tools at the citizens' disposal now is the crime mapping that is on our website. I strongly encourage each of you to go in and kind of look at the data that's available to all of our citizens, well, anybody with access to the internet. And so I sat down at the urging of my neighbors who had been burglarized with thanks to Chief Bradshaw, Police Chief Bradshaw, and the city manager and Major Waymeyer to talk a little bit about what are we doing to respond and stay ahead of some of this activity in our neighborhoods. I am very proud that I live in a safe neighborhood. Beaverdale, I think, is a safe neighborhood, and most neighborhoods around our city are as safe as they've ever been because of the good work of our police. There is still room for improvement, and one of the observations that I have is that we've probably, because of the success in some tough neighborhoods through neighborhood-based service delivery and the advancement of that over the last 10 years, we may not be talking as much as we should be about the resources of the police department available to small neighborhoods, the old neighborhood watch programs, and other things. These robberies that happen in people's homes in my neighborhood, and to put it in context, one of them was slightly over a year ago, but it is within 30 yards of my house across the street. Laura Hayes, we have her name wrong in the agenda, her one time in the limelight. We'll reprint a new one with your right name. Laura lives through a catwalk, so to drive to her house is quite a ways from my house, maybe a half mile. But if we just walked from door to door, she's 5 doors from my house through a catwalk. These burglaries in this vicinity have been major ordeals for the family, and in Laura's case happened right when I don't want to give any personal information that would put you at risk, but she had been gone, and her house was much more. They walked out with a lot more than a TV under somebody's arms. They backed up vehicles and left with lots of stuff, and it happened in the days leading into Christmas. The kind of personal things that happen in that is just devastating to the people that it affects, and it is. Because of our crime mapping, has had a lot of talk in the Beaverdale area. And I just want to make sure that as a council, we're given proper direction to the police department on the things that are a priority. And for me, I'm really pleased when I hear their reports about the efforts that we're making to combat crime and community policing. That's kind of a jargon word, but those kinds of neighborhood watch programs. And I hope you'll be pleased as me as to some of the things that we have in place, but I think this is a time to recommit ourselves, and I know that as frustrating as the experience is that Laura has had and her family has had, it's even more frustrating to think that it would come and go without a call to action and thinking about ways that we can improve. So with that, I ask Major Waymeyer to share some of the things he told me the other day as we were talking about this.
Thank you, Councilman. Steve Waymeyer, Major, Des Moines Police Department. I'm in charge of our Criminal Investigations Division. Thank you for having me. After I talked to Councilman Coleman and learned of Ms. Hayes and Ronnie Hawkins and what they had told him, I personally reached out to them. I wanted to find out what their concerns were, and if the concerns are of burglaries in their area, and also about how we communicate to the victims of burglaries. I assured them that we do take burglaries very seriously. I also had follow-up done with them to make sure that they understood what was being done in their cases, and in both cases, work is being done. I know burglaries are alarming for those involved. Even though burglaries are slightly down citywide, we're not happy with the overall number. Burglaries are the most difficult case to solve for police officers. Nationally, only about 12% of burglary cases get solved. That has many factors associated with that, but this is, in the real world, only eyewitnesses, identifiable property, and physical evidence are what lead to convictions in burglaries. I wanted to take this opportunity to share with all of you what we do and how we deploy our resources to combat burglaries. We take a three-pronged approach to burglaries. We utilize technology, we deploy our resources, and we have communication with the public. The technology we utilize is getting better every day. We have crime mapping programs. Those that Councilman Coleman described that are available to the public, we have more in-depth versions of the same thing that allow us to identify trends, such as the area of town, time of day, and the mode of operation by the criminals. We also have an automated pawn system that's come online within the last year. The automated pawn system allows us to enter in all stolen items from burglaries and thefts into a computer database, and when those items are pawned, that becomes identified and notifies the detective in charge of the case. We're then able to follow up on that, retrieve identifiable property, and identify suspects. The other part of our technology that we utilize are pole cameras. We have pole cameras out that originally started years ago as graffiti cameras. Well, they've progressed quite a bit in the last few years. We're able to put them up. We're able to watch them from home if need be on a computer or at work, and they record. So when crimes occur around in the area of that we have a pole camera placed, and we place the pole cameras through analysis of the data we receive. Second part of what I talked about is how we deploy our resources. One of the questions from Ms. Hayes and Ms. Hawkins was, do we use the data that we have to deploy our resources? And absolutely we do. We have detectives out in the neighborhoods on a daily basis. We also have a special enforcement team consisting of our neighborhood-based service delivery and detectives. And as a matter of fact, on Friday, Sergeant Vance of the neighborhood-based service delivery was out and about and arrested a burglar. We also utilize the information to give our patrol officers an idea of what's occurring, when it's occurring, so they can better address the situation as well. The third part of what I talked about is communication. Communication encompasses a lot of things, but the first thing that we care about is how we communicate with the victims of the crime. We want our detectives and our officers to keep the victims informed and also show empathy for them. These are victims of crimes, and we need to understand that. We also need to communicate with the public as a whole to educate them on what the public can do to help us solve crimes. The reality of it is those of you that live in the neighborhoods, in your neighborhoods, know what's out of place. The police officer is not always going to know. We encourage everyone to talk to their neighbors, especially if they're going to be out of town, and also to keep an itemized list of property in the house so that if something occurs, such as a burglary, we can help, as I said before, use the pawn system and other measures to identify that property, get it back to the individual that lost it, and prosecute the criminal who took it. We also make ourselves available to attend neighborhood meetings to give advice on how you can watch out for your neighbor. I know Ms. Hawkins said she'd been in contact with Lieutenant Joe Gonzalez of our neighborhood-based service delivery and was setting up a meeting with him. That's great. We encourage all neighborhood organizations to do the same thing. That's how we handle burglaries. I just wanted to give you an overview. We know that our solve rates are low. They're low nationally, and we're doing everything we can to increase those solve rates. It's also important to note that we just had 21 officers graduate our academy. That has enabled us to backfill for retirements that the Detective Bureau has had. That occurred at the end of December, where we have 5 more detectives assigned to the Bureau, and we think that's going to go a long ways. Preventing and solving crimes is what we strive to do. We're not happy with the numbers as they exist, as I said. We're striving to do better. I want to have my property detective stand up I just want everybody to know that they're here. With the exception of those detectives who are out actively doing warrants this afternoon, these are the people that are investigating the crime. I felt it was important to have them here. I want to emphasize to them and to the public how important this topic is to us. Also, in addition to these detectives, we also have Major Dana Winger, who's in charge of our patrol bureau, here for support as well. Thank you.
Major, thank you very much. I was really pleased to hear the level of commitment that everybody has. And I know it's never good enough when you're the one that's been harmed. It wouldn't be for me. And I really appreciate Laura's and Ronnie's attitude that something has to keep happening that's improvement. And I appreciate you having your people here to hear us and the citizens. And maybe we should let Laura and Ronnie talk, if that's all right.
I'm Laura Hayes. I live at 3514 47th Street in Beaverdale. I'd like to start out thanking Chris for allowing us to come and talk to you tonight. In September, the Hawkins family home was broken into. Their back door was kicked in and thieves stole them blind. When Ronnie speaks, I'll let her explain everything to you. On Christmas Day, our Beaverdale home was burglarized. They used our truck, Old Blue, to take our Christmas gifts, our computers, our TVs, but most of all, they took our precious mementos. They meant nothing to anyone but myself and my family. They took handwritten letters from my grandmother, who's been passed away for 25 years. They stole so many things from us that I can't even begin to have you comprehend the gravity of this situation. What they didn't steal from us, they ruined. They ransacked my home from top to bottom. They tore up my daughter's baby book. They tore up our wedding album. They even left a turkey rotting on my hardwood floor. Just to give you an idea of the gravity of how hard our home was hit. I feel the initial police response from the Detectives Division for both of our cases were a little bit concerning. Although we are concerned about that, we're not here to bash anyone. I don't want to start off this conversation with that misconception. I am simply concerned that it appears comments were made that make it appear that the number of crimes happening in our neighborhood is acceptable. If that's the case, I'm very concerned. Since I've requested to speak to the council about these concerns, we've had an armed robbery and several burglaries also, and an auto theft within a 1-mile radius of my home. If the number of burglaries and robberies are consistent from year to year and not alarming to the authorities, it concerns me as a citizen. There were 57 burglaries in a 1-mile radius of my home from September 1st through January 2nd. I find that disturbing. There were over 175 in a 2-mile radius of my home. This is truly frightening. I believe that as a community, we should not feel this is acceptable. As a community, we need to step up and be educated on how to protect ourselves, our homes, and our neighbors. I believe that if I had been informed, and the neighbors that I have talked to also believe, if they were aware of the situation going on in our neighborhood, we would certainly have made different choices. Different decisions could have been made to protect ourselves. We could have and would have made different decisions when we went out of town for 6 days. If we had the statistics available to us, we could have left our 2 dogs at home. We could have had my stepdaughter stay at our home rather than stay with her grandmother. I could have had my sister drive by more than just the couple of times that I had her drive by. We had already been discussing about putting in an alarm system because of our changing work schedules. If we had known there had been more than Ronnie and John's burglary, I know that we would have made different decisions. The lines of communications need to be more open between the local law enforcement agencies and the neighborhoods. Citizens are willing to listen, volunteer, learn, and be mentored on how to prevent or lessen these types of crimes in our communities. How do we as a community come together to help prevent or lessen these types of threats to our homes and our safety? It seems to me that the people that I've spoken to about these crimes, we feel that they are escalating. Beaverdale was listed in the Forbes magazine in the top 10 twice since 2010. Most recently, we were number 7 on the list as the most beautiful neighborhood to live in. I don't think Forbes magazine would find the statistics about crime in Beaverdale very appealing. How does this crime rate correlate to things that are happening now? Are statistics like this going to affect property values in Beaverdale? I've had a fantastic follow-up from the Des Moines PD. Major Waymeyer and Sergeant Vance have been outstanding. I also received another phone call from another sergeant. I'm sorry I've forgotten his name except that it was Dave, but I do appreciate everything that they are doing. I really appreciate their effort and willingness to help us. The police department is willing to mentor us as a community for Neighborhood Watch and individually how to protect ourselves and our homes and as neighbors to protect each other. I'm grateful for their outreached hands, and I look forward to working with them further to help lessen this trouble that has seemed to be getting out of control in our community, not just in Beaverdale. It seems to be everywhere in the city of Des Moines. We are here to be part of the resolution. Please utilize us to educate us and help take back our community. We need to utilize those of us that are willing to partner with the police department to educate everyone what needs to be done. I think that's about all that I have. Thank you to the Des Moines PD for everything that you do every day. I know how hard your job is. I know that you are understaffed and you're underfunded, just like the court staff that I work for is understaffed and underfunded. I do truly appreciate everything that you do every day. Let's work together as a community to make things better. Thank you for the council for willingness to listen to our concerns. And I appreciate your commitment to making this better. I'd like to acknowledge anyone from Beaverdale that has shown up tonight because of their concerns as well. If there's anyone, EJ's here. I don't know if there's anyone else here. If you would like to stand up, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. I'd like to introduce my friend Ronnie, who is also a recent victim of a burglary, and she has some statistics available to you. Thank you.
My name is Ronnie Hawkins. Good evening. I live at 2500 38th Street in Des Moines. I just want to give you a snapshot, not even building my house. I don't want to talk about my house right now because it's about our community. I want to give you all a snapshot of what I've been looking at on crimemapping.com. I would guess if you went to this site and put your address in there, you might see some of the same items that we have seen. Let's wait till you all get one.
Go ahead, we can see it on the screen, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is a 1 mile radius from the post office in Beaverdale where there was 62 burglaries within 5 months. One of those would include my house and Laura's. Within the 2 mile radius, it's 178 burglaries. Within the 1 mile radius, including all crimes, 216. In a 2 mile radius from the United States Post Office in Beaverdale, 800 plus crimes have been committed and reported within the last 5 months. We have been told a few things. We have been told it's normal. We have been told you're lucky. We found blood in the house down the way. We have been told by the ADT security that Beaverdale is being hit very hard. It's tough for us right now. It's hard to see what's going on in the back. I just know what we feel when we talk to our neighbors. If this is normal, it is not acceptable. I would like for you to think about when there are budget talks coming into play, funding more officers, funding more to help us in our community. I thank you all for listening.
Mayor, if I might just close my part of the comments by first thanking Ronnie and Laura for coming down. I've spoke outside of these chambers with them. Laura, I think the day of learning about her robbery, this is an issue. I would also thank the police department for the work that they do, but I would challenge you, manager, and the police chief to kind of double down on our commitment to community policing. One of the things that I've learned over time is that the neighborhood associations can be extremely valuable to this, but they're really just a pathway to smaller neighborhood groups. I think the police department would say that, you know, an ideal community watch program are the neighbors and the people right there on the street, sharing phone numbers and addresses and communicating when people are out of town, watching out for each other. And I hope that we'll commit the resources that when small neighborhood groups, not just quote-unquote neighborhood associations, that's great, I'm not diminishing that, but when small neighborhood groups would like to put a plan together, we've done that in our neighborhood over a period of time. Larry Rogers was out in our garage with our neighbors, and we did that when we had some problems 10 or 12 years ago. And I would hope that we can redouble our efforts as we watch this information and make sure that that we're using all the data that we have to be proactive and predicting and warning neighbors and residents about what we're seeing. If there's one thing that I wish, it was that we were focusing our efforts where we knew that there was a pattern of problems. I know we have all kinds of tools and we have all kinds of ways to help us solve problems from all of our investigative techniques. Let's use what we learn to look for patterns and to warn neighbors, so some people may have known that this was happening up and down their street so they could take care of themselves. I think a vibrant neighborhood watch program in our community would provide that, and that has to be even in smaller groups than a neighborhood association. So that's kind of my reflection and my challenge to your system and to the police chief, that we assist small groups in making sure they take an aggressive stance in their own neighborhoods about how to protect each other and watch out for each other.
Andrew?
Mr. Mayor, council members, first, let me say I very much appreciate the testimony here, and Mr. Coleman, your comments as well. And I get the sense of urgency that is here. And so give us a chance to sit down with the police chief and Major Waymeyer. And I particularly appreciate the troops being here. It's a bit unusual. I don't think I've ever seen so many detectives show up at the council meeting, but it gives you a sense, I hope, of the feeling that we're very committed to this. We understand the magnitude of the issue. I will tell you, like maybe other people in this room, I had my house broken into. I know what it feels like to have all of your possessions stolen. It's not a very nice feeling. So you have our attention, and with the council's direction here, we will do everything we can with the resources we have to do a better job of making sure this doesn't happen again.
I'd like to officially move to receive and file your comments so it's in the record, and ask that the city manager and the police chief report back to the council when there's budget or policy implications that we could assist with. And in the meantime, direct you to use every resource that we have to assist people in the neighborhoods.
We will do it.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh.
Can I say something? I apologize. My name is Trent Craycraft. I live at 5008 Sawyers Drive. First of all, I'd like to thank the Des Moines PD. They, I work for the biggest security company in the world. Absolutely love what I do. Every day I see people like this, and it really lays heavy on my heart. But over the past year, I've been to a lot of homes in Beaverdale, and I have been 3 separate occasions on a job when a police officer, which I would not know at the time, dressed in plain clothes, would knock on the door and or just walk up to me as I'm on a ladder and ask me what I'm doing. I'd show him my badge, and so he saw who I worked for. He was fine, but I wanted to let you guys all know that they are out there. They all are doing what they can do. They're in plain clothes. They're walking around the neighborhoods, and I appreciate that. But as far as educating people in these neighborhoods go, I would gladly do all I can do during work, after work, on my own personal time to educate people on how these people are getting in homes and things you can do outside of a security system that can really help detour and keep people out of your homes. So I would gladly work with the police department or with any neighborhood association to keep this from happening, because over the past year I can tell you it has really spiked. And Beaverdale is, it's where I live, and it's where my mother lives, and it's, my mother owns a business there. It's really important to me. So I just wanted to.
For whom do you work?
ADT.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.
Moves us to item 47 from Council Member Skip Moore to speak regarding the snow removal. Ms. Moore.
I wanted to touch, can I give these folks a minute to leave?
We can wait till 8 o'clock if you want.
I'd sure prefer you didn't.
Yeah, we're all going to go home, but if you want.
I just wanted to speak briefly about the extraordinary storm event that we had December 19th and 20th. As you all know, that was the night of the blizzard. And early on the morning of the 20th, it was brought to my attention that Public Works had been without power, and me being me, I jumped in my pickup, my four-wheel drive, and I drove down to Public Works. And I was pleasantly surprised with what I saw. First of all, the folks that were down there should be there, and they were all calm. The emergency generators had the Tactical Operations Center, the call center, and the radio center were all powered and up. And there was also an electrician down there running extension cords to several computers in the building they thought they may need during different times of the day. So they're powered. The whole building is not powered by generators at this time. So he was doing a good job. I took a look at the list of vehicles and personnel that were out in the field, and they were out there doing what they were supposed to be doing. They were plowing the snow routes. Virtually all of them reported, which I really didn't expect. I thought a lot of them were going to have troubles getting in, and with the flu around, I thought there'd be quite a few off. But that was not the case. They were dedicated, and they were in there. Right away, I heard that forestry that provides some essential snow plowing had been pulled off the snow plowing because we had several hundred trees blocking streets. And normally, would we put employees out in a blizzard removing trees out of a street? No. But due to the nature of this storm and where the trees were, the forestry employees were out doing that. And in order to make up for their absence, we had some employees from solid waste, since solid waste was shut down for the day, and we had some that had taken training for snow plowing. They came in to help make up for forestry. In addition to Public Works, I'm very proud of the fact that Parks and Rec was there, and the WRA was also there helping plow snow. And this was extremely important to the residents of this city. December 23rd, after some of the complaints started coming in about the state of our streets, I drove to Pleasant Hill and Altoona and part of Ankeny, and they seemed to be in the same shape, if not worse. December 25th, I attended a Christmas party in Ankeny and drove some more streets up there, and it was still in bad shape. On December 26th, I personally observed DOT on 235 clearing ramps. with the technology, they've got the best technology and the best equipment. Generally, 235 is completely clear 24 hours after a snow. Here it was a week later, and they're still working on it. The night of the snowstorm, I observed the police department out. Several cars in my neighborhood running around putting warnings on cars, and this was still in the blizzard. Do I think all cars in the city that need warnings got them? No. However, I think they're doing the best they could, and I really appreciate the fact that they were doing that. I appreciate the fact that fleet maintenance was up fully and working. We had units going down right and left, and they were putting them back on the streets as quick as they possibly could. You know, the bottom line on all this is that every year, Public Works puts together a snow plan, and this is this year's snow plan. It's 139 pages long. It gets updated every single year, and believe me, folks, if there's anything involved with a snowstorm that Public Works and their support staff should be doing, it's in here. And it's, I can go to one page in here that lists the whole night crew. It's a full page. It's got all their contact information, which vehicle they're assigned to when they come into work. And if that unit's down, they've got extra units they'll put them into. I can flip further back, and it describes one particular location, 3601 Southwest 56, and how they should install snow fence, how much it should be, how many posts it should be. This explicitly gets into it. I've got a report here from the fire department that was forwarded to Pat Kazitsa in Public Works. They said in a nutshell we had 365 incidents from 12/20 to 12/23. 3 were structure fires. They had no unexpected damage or problems due to winter driving conditions. Extraordinary storm, no extraordinary problems. I think the bottom line on this is that our residents have come to expect the usual top-notch snow removal that we normally have. This was an extraordinary storm where the best way to explain it was the ground was not frozen when the snow hit. It was wet. It got packed. The temperature dropped quickly. We had high winds, and the results were that the packed snow turned into ice and it laminated to the pavement. And other than a road grader, we couldn't find anything. The belly plows won't peel it off. The snow plows won't peel it off. As cold as it was, the salt will not work until the sun hits it. So to wrap this up, I'd like to say myself, I'm very proud of our employees, the dedication, the commitment they showed. I know some of them feel like they're getting beat up by the public. They shouldn't. And with that, I think Pat Kazitsa might have a few words to say.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Pat Kazitsa, Des Moines Public Works Department. With me tonight, I've got administrative staff, Bruce Braun, Sarah Teese, and Jeff May, people who managed this storm through from beginning to end, and I'm pleased to have them with us tonight. This was an extraordinary storm. You might remember me talking to you in July about better, faster snow removal. Well, I tell you what, this storm literally tested our limits. In this storm, we had this sort of situation. We had warm surface meet cold object, and we ended up with a bond on the street that was hard to get off, both on our main streets as well as our side streets. So the amount of snow, 12.5 inches, that's over a third of what we normally get in a season. And we didn't have snow before that time, as Councilman Moore points out, warm road surfaces. So it 45 mile an hour winds, and temperatures were interesting. 37 degrees before, and it dropped to 14. That gave us this sort of condition, and on the bottom here, you can see where the street has been plowed, but yet there's packed snow and ice on that we had to take off layer by layer with several passes. So the program worked. We have 225 centerline miles of main streets. Those were open. People were able to get around the city during and after that storm, and that's important. Then we went into the residential streets to open them up to get that loose material off so people could get to the main roads. And here you can see on the bottom where it was day after day with motor patrols to peel that off. Tree debris cleanup, a major part of this. It was good to have the in-house force. We had 250 trees that were obstructing the roadways. We had to move those, then plow them out, and then now the cleanup continues, 480 total. As far as the private tree debris on cleanup, we've got the drop-off location at 1601 Harriet Street. It's on again on February 16th, and we're looking at setting it up every third Saturday of the month through November so people can time it when they're ready to move that debris. Nobody wants to go dig it out of 10 inches now, but when they're ready, they can bring it. We'll take small stuff at the curb anytime with a composted sticker. So for us, the snow doesn't end, the work doesn't end when the snow ends. We are into the streets, and now even after that, we're into downtown snow loading. Rigorous operation, tough on equipment, tough on staff, 1,374 loads taken out of the downtown. Parking restrictions, I got to tell you, worked for the majority of the people. Majority of the cars were off the street, and we're really pleased with that. We did have some that were on the street. We appreciate our people in police department supporting us in this enforcement action, issuing these education warnings, and frankly, a lot of people did hear about it for the first time with that warning, so we're pleased to do that. The odd-even areas alone, 254. So here's what we had by the numbers here, emails, that many subscribers, Twitter, 186. Now that's kind of a term of art there on Facebook, 288 likes, because not all those liked us. There were a couple that were dissatisfied. And then we had the text message system. Here it is by the numbers. I mean, we use 82,000 gallons of salt brine, 3,800 tons of salt, 13,000 hours of people doing the snow removal at a cost of about $1 million. We're pleased because early on, due to due diligence, we had people off this fall in early winter. They were home on their time. And then when they came back, they were down on what we call the compensatory time, so they could build it up. Many people earning 60, 80 hours, but at this point, only one person got into an overtime situation, and now they're back off again. It's a tool we use to keep from expending more than we've got. What did we learn? A lot of things. We do an after-action. Planning for this year began after last year. On this one, the key points for us is additional education. We need to drive home that no parking program. We know it's going to be successful. We know that that wing plow can clear in 2 passes, what normally takes 3. Up-to-date communications. People want to be up to date. Where are you at today? Where are you at? What's happening right now? So we got to work on keeping that more up to date. And then we need more front-end loaders, as we see it from an operational standpoint, to clean out cul-de-sacs and dead-end streets. We have what we call a 1-ton truck, but it just didn't have the horsepower to move that snow out of those areas. So we're looking to gear up on those now with fleet services. Many things of success in this program, from the policy to the procedures. Bottom line is, you took a 30-year winter storms in 1 storm, and it took a while to get it off. Right now, the streets are open for normal winter driving condition, and we're glad because there's a lot of winter left. So, thank you very much. Thank you, Councilman Moore. Yes.
Pat, echo, you did I think you and all the staff did a great job in a very, very, very difficult storm. So thank you very much for that. The 3 items that you had there on what you learned from the storm, I concur completely. I was amazed at the calls I got from individuals that had no idea as to the change on parking, absolutely no idea. So we think that we did a good job communicating. Obviously, we didn't.
And we did a lot of work on that. We spent about $28,000 trying to get that word out. We had, the inserts and the waterworks. We had in the City Source magazine. We had the press releases. But, people are busy these days. It's hard to get their attention on something until it's right there in front of them. We understand that, and we'll continue our efforts. We've already begun by sending out to those neighborhood presidents where the warning tickets were issued. and they know what district they're in, they can see where their neighborhood, and then we're asking them through their newsletters, their neighborhood meetings, continue to get the word out, and we'll continue to work on it as well.
The other comment would be on the city webpage, is there a way, because this was the call I had frequently, when are they going to get to my street? Where are they at? You know, do we have any estimated time that this is going to occur? And I believe if they had something to look at just to see how the plowing was going, that would be very helpful and informative.
Yeah, right now what we have is in a large scale, we have when we've begun residentials and we've got when we're done with them. But what people want, they want it parsed out a little bit more when they're going to be in my area, so we're looking at that now.
Okay, great. Good job.
Pat, for clarification, we still have one more snow that will issue educational warnings, correct?
Yes, Major Waymire and the police department were very instructive to us on that. It may take more than one warning, so on the next one we'll warn as well, and then we go right to tickets.
Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Skip, thank you for your comments. Pat, great job for the staff. Kudos to not only Public Works, but Parks and WRA, all the folks that pitched in on this, police as well. I had a chance to talk to many of you about this particular snow event, and many of you, I think particularly Brian and Christine, both talked to me a lot about, and I talked to Pat about the communication issue. You already touched on that, but one thing that Pat didn't mention that we are taking a look at, and that is when there is now information about another major snow, such as we had here, or maybe even something less than this, our intention would be to try to get information out to the public sooner than that. Maybe there's a press conference, but a little bit of overkill in terms of trying to make sure that people know what's coming. It seemed to us that one of the things that people experienced here was just massive disinformation about what our plan was, or the lack, or any understanding that there was a plan in terms of how we did it. Why that can be after years and years and years of doing it, I don't know, but it is certainly the case, I think, as Pat agreed. So in addition to all the things that Pat said, one additional step, and that is trying to be even more proactive when we see these storms predicted and we know they're coming, even to the extent of having press conferences or anything that we can get out the information in the hours leading up to these events, I think would be helpful, and was one of the pieces of information that I got from many of the council members as I talked to you.
Pat, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we ought to have a motion to receive and file all this information.
Move.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, item 47I is from Councilmember Bob Mahaffey to speak regarding, one, naming of the Union Park roadways, and naming of the East Side Dog Park. Bob?
I have had an opportunity to visit with a number of the people in the Union Park Neighborhood Association, and they've had some concerns about the streets in the park itself not being named. And so when you have emergency vehicles and that in there, how do they find how to pinpoint where they're going? So what they would like to have, and you know, it's a kind of a unique park. I think it has 5 entrances going into it, and be able to identify what entrance and at what point the emergency is needed. And so I would like to refer this to the city manager and staff for them to look at this and see if we can't come up with some way of naming those roads within the park.
Okay.
So you want me to go on with the...
That's a motion?
Yeah, it's a motion, yeah.
All right. Anybody to speak on it? All right.
7 yes.
7 yes. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, our other one here is at the East Side Dog Park, which is going in out by, across the street from Sergeant Park, back where one of the mobile homes had been eliminated through the flooding in that, and that thought that it might be well if we could name that park after the police dog that's died last year. Maybe a name of, you know, K9 Reno or something of that nature, and look at some of the, Jim Conlon has agreed to purchase a memorial plaque for the dog, and in addition to that, Jim's made a contribution to the park. And in talking with Ben, he thought possibly we could maybe put a memorial wall up or something, and maybe others would want to put plaques there like they similar to what they've done at Gray's Lake and that, so that they could kind of help maintain the park with some of those revenues that might come in there. So would like to also refer this to city manager and staff to look at that and see if that's a possibility.
I'm surprised you guys got them.
So I'll make that motion.
All right, any discussion?
I hear you.
7 yes.
All right, that takes us to an extra item, I think.
Oh, man, I got more.
One more. It'll go quick.
Which is a request from the mayor and city council member chair, Mr. Coleman, to start the work of the personnel committee, and Mr. Coleman is the chair of that committee, and for a report and to begin the performance review process for the city manager, the city clerk, city attorney, and the Human Rights Commission director. Mr. Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make this brief. We have an obligation to be good employers to the 4 people that report to the council. They're listed on the action above. We have gotten ourselves behind on this obligation, and I'm working to see it that we're not behind any after the first meeting of February. So today's note was really just in the effort to be transparent and make clear that we are in that process and intending to return with a recommendation from the subcommittee. We probably won't make it in 2 weeks for the meeting then to give the process its worthy time, but we do intend to return within a month at the first meeting in February. That process will respond to the contractual obligations that we have to some of our employees and give us a chance to set new goals and review the progress that's been made. It goes without saying, I'm really pleased with the professional leadership of the city. In no way should this be viewed as coming out of left field to crack down on anybody or anything of that nature. The public is well served by our leaders, and I'm looking forward to the process. The mayor and I visited about kicking it off, and tonight is just a formal way of saying we're seeking input. We're going to run the process slightly different than in the past. We're going to first do a self-assessment that all the employees are prepared to do and have already started or finished in some ways, and we'll use that as the starting point to react to and set goals from. So I just wanted to report that out to be as transparent as we can.
You gonna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to receive and file the comments and to set on the agenda as the first action on the agenda for the first meeting in February.
7 yes.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do we have another?
Unless there's anyone who doesn't want us to adjourn, we said adjourn.